Fork, yes, that can be an issue. If you have a fork at the start, if there's a fork at the start of the relationship line like this, that's a good sign, because what that represents is soulmates coming together. So two people coming together, it may be a difficult start. And for John, one of the love marriage signs as well is a fork at the start, because often in certain countries it's difficult to get a love marriage. So that fork represents a difficult beginning, but it's a good sign because those people are kind of like meant to be together. So that particular fork is a good sign. In this picture, I've got the heart line and the headline are the two top lines, and then the lifeline. So when the headline is joined to the lifeline, it shows a little bit more insecurity, a little bit more connection to the family. So when these two are separated, if the lifeline is separated from the headline, it shows more independence, and that's one of the signs of a love marriage. Then the other sign is on the fate line. Picture of a fate line. Can I draw on the fate line? On the fate line, the other actual, yes, I can draw on this picture for some reason. So on this fate line, if you have a fate line rising towards the middle finger, there may be an influence line that comes out the side. If this influence line connects to the fate line, it points to a time when the person might have a love marriage. If the line goes past and crosses, then that's not a good sign because it missed the mark. So the marriage didn't work out. It didn't come across. Same as if the influence line comes towards the fate line but doesn't hit. So that was another opportunity lost, so to speak. The other signs of love marriage is when there is a double fate line, then the fate line needs to run really close. Needs to run really close to the other fate line. So that represents like a partner in marriage. It can also represent a partner in business. So you have to look at all the other markings. So overall, the signs of love marriage is if a person has separated head and lifeline, if they have a strong marriage line, if they have a small weak line, that can be more likely an arranged marriage or just an affair as such. So those are those particular points that can represent love marriage. Or the other signs was the mount of Jupiter that might have a cross on it, and that shows a good marriage as well. So we have, what was the other question? Can you save your marriage line? Can I change it? I don't want to live bad marriage life. I don't know, that scares me. Well, you have two relationships with the fork, but where is the fork? So the relationship fork at the finish. So yours are at the end. That means that the marriage can go either way. It doesn't represent a divorce by itself. It can simply mean that there might be problems there. So that can go either way. So there's a fork. It's a fork at the end. It's the same as a fork at the end of the lifeline. So if you have a fork at the end of the marriage line, it means that there's two directions. So either you take on more of your career, and your career becomes as important as the marriage. So the fork is saying that there's two directions. So on its own, it's not a divorce line. Okay, so fork at the end of the marriage line. I'm going to do the signs of divorce. These might not be visible before the divorce. I am divorced, I have all of these signs. So I can tell you, you probably need all of these for it to be fully accurate. One of the signs of divorce potentially is having two marriage lines. Firstly, because you might marry here at, say, age 21, 22, really early. Things don't go well, and there's a second line. So that second line might be a marriage later on, 30s or 40s. So having two lines is the first potential divorce sign. Now the reason why it's potential is because the first line might not be marriage. It might just be your boyfriend or girlfriend that you had when you were 15, something like that. So it can represent an attachment to someone. These are attachment lines more so than actual marriage line. So, but the first sign of potential marriage is those two lines. So let's say if that first line wasn't a marriage line and the second one is a marriage line. The first thing to see if there's problems, excuse me, maybe I need some water, is if there is marks on that marriage line. Is there cross lines, crosses on it? Is there fuzzy skin on it? Does it look flawed? Does it look like a nice line, or does it look flawed? A flawed line means that there may be something wrong in the marriage. Still not a sign of divorce. There may be something wrong in the marriage, that's all. The second one, these stress lines that radiate out of the thumb are very common. Nothing wrong with that, but sometimes they reach the headline, which is affecting the person's mental state. They're very stressed. If they reach the heart line, that's showing that person is having emotional stress. They are suffering in the marriage. If they are suffering in a marriage, that's showing there's a lot of stress. Still not a sign of divorce by itself. It is literally just saying the person is not having a good time. It's never too late to correct these if you want to stay in the marriage. If both people want to stay in the marriage, it's never too late to correct all of these problems. It's when you're aware of that there's a problem, you talk about the problem, you seek counseling or whatever it takes, everything can turn out perfect in the end, but it needs to have two people to want it to be perfect in the end. So what really points to things are going south, in other words going bad in a marriage, is if one of these stress lines is actually connected to the marriage line. That line can be frazzled, it can be broken, but if it's straight through and hits that marriage line, that's getting to the point of no return. Also, there will be signs on the actual fate line. So say if this person is, say, 35, let's say 35. So at age 35, the fate line is where it hits the headline, right about here. So if at that point where it hits the headline, the fate line changes course, say if it starts to rise somewhere else, that's showing a change on that fate line. That's showing that that person will be changing their course, and that together with all of these can point to divorce. There's more. Wait, there's more. There's the fate line. I'm going to draw the lifeline. There's a sign on the lifeline that can also represent it. Is when the lifeline is broken. And it goes like this. Around the same age, it has to be broken at the same point. So here at this point, it's around 35. And same as on the fate line, it was around 35. The marriage line is around 35. So at this point where it's broken, this is meant to be an arrow, not a line. This point where it's broken, you might see connecting lines to the fate line. So it looks like a bit of a mess of lines. So what's happening is the fate line is taking control of the life, so to speak. Sometimes this line here is missing altogether. Sometimes the lifeline seems to stop and get taken over by the fate line. So the fate line takes over. So that's saying that's a big change in life. So it may represent a divorce, but it can also represent other big changes in life. So nothing is for certain. If that, I can guarantee you in palmistry, nothing is certain. So this, I'll go back to this marriage line again because I was talking about this earlier, so I keep going back to it. So we're going to quickly talk about the different meanings of the marks on there. I was going to bring up my notes, but it's okay. So a crossbar that crosses a marriage line, such as this, is clearly represents, I call that a deletion line. So the marriage line that was a relationship or a union or a lover, if that has a deletion line, that's like deleting that union, so it's no more. And that's when there's often a line above it. Don't mistake a deletion line for children lines. Children lines rise up from the marriage line. So say if this person had 2 children, there will be 2 children lines there. Now if there happens to be like a bubble, and by bubble it can mean an island. So if the line has like an island like that, and then it comes back to 1, so there's like just an island shape, that can represent a period when there's difficulties in that union. But because it comes back to its original line, it doesn't stay as an island. The island only represents a temporary thing, so it's not permanent.